This is News Always On. The World Cup was first held in 1930 and was contested by just 13 teams. Today, all that has changed. 32 teams will take part in this year's event in Russia after a 2-year qualifying process. The 2018 FIFA World Cup is spread across 12 stadiums in 11 host cities. They range from St. Petersburg, which is so far north that the sun doesn't set on some summer days, to Sochi and its subtropical climate on the Black Sea coast. The first we are looking at is the stadium in Moscow that can hold up to 81,000 people. The cost to build this was $410 million. This was a vast bowl built in the 1950s to showcase the sporting might of the Soviet Union. The old stands were ripped out and the athletics track from the 1980 Olympics torn up as the stadium was converted into a football-specific venue that increases capacity and comfort while bringing fans closer to the action. It reopened on November 11 when Argentina beat Russia 1-0 in a friendly match. Russian fans praised the rebuild, but many were angered by lengthy delays in accessing nearby public transport that improved for subsequent friendliness, but allowed plenty of time for travel to the stadium and back. On the other side of the river, a fan zone will show games on big screens near Moscow State University. The second stadium is also in Moscow, capacity that can hold up to 43,000 people. It costs $250 million. Home of the 2017 Russian Premier League champion Spartak Moscow, this stadium opened in 2014 and is already well tested as a venue for Champions League and Confederations Cup games. It is usually known as the Okridi Arena, but FIFA rules on sponsorship means a temporary name change for the tournament. The towering statue of a gladiator outside is a nod to Spartak, being named after the Roman slave rebel Spartacus. It is the only World Cup stadium built without government money. Transport is relatively easy from central Moscow, though chronic traffic jams means most fans prefer the subway. The next one we are looking at is St. Petersburg Stadium. It can hold up to 68,000 people and it costs about $735 million to build. Almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong with the St. Petersburg Stadium. Severe delays and soaring costs were just the start for a project which became notorious for employing North Korean laborers, one of whom was among at least 8 people to die on the stadium and 17 across all World Cup construction sites, according to the trade union Building and Woodworkers International. A deputy governor of St. Petersburg has admitted his role in the 50 million ruble, that is $850,000, sim to siphon off the stadium's budget, though officials say the true picture of corruption was much larger. The spaceship-like arena, which will host a semi-final, remains plagued by a leaking roof and a pitch which had to be replaced repeatedly. Confederations Cup games, however, passed largely without incident, and Russia says it's working to iron out any more problems. Next up, we have the Fish Stadium. It is in the city of Sochi and it can hold up to almost 50,000 people. It cost $400 million for initial construction and $68 million later to convert for football. While memories of the Sochi Olympics became dominated by Russia's doping scandals, one part of the legacy is still gleaming. Nestled by the Black Sea, Fish Stadium hosted the lavish opening and closing ceremonies for the 2014 Winter Olympics and then Confederations Cup games. How the Olympic legacy continues after the World Cup isn't clear. Sochi doesn't have a football club to use the stadium. Fans are advised to book hotels near the Olympic Park because the main city of Sochi is an hour away. Next up is the Kazan Arena. It can hold up to 45,000 people and it costs $250 million to build. Opened in 2013 as the first of Russia's new generation of football stadiums, it was used as the prototype for the other new arenas. It's a versatile venue and has hosted Confederations Cup football ceremonies and even the 2015 World Swimming Championships, where there was a temporary pool installed. Next up, we have the Samara Arena. In the city of Samara, of course, it can hold up to almost 45,000 people and it costs about $310 million to build. The stadium in the Volga River city of Samara is ambitious but proved tricky to finish on time. Its ambitious design, though, a glass dome evoking Samara's history as the center of the Russian space program, needed extra time to build but finally opened in April. The stadium is on the outskirts of the city, so fans should allow plenty of time for travel to games including a World Cup quarterfinal. Next up is the Nizhny Novgorod Stadium. It can hold up to 45,000 people again, and it cost 307 million to build according to the Russian media estimates. With a roof which seems to float atop white columns, the stadium has one of Russia's more impressive designs and will host a quarterfinal. It also offers fans views of the Oka and Volga rivers which meet in Nizhny Novgorod, a historic city located around 4 hours east of Moscow. Legacy could be a problem as local club Olympiads Nizhny Novgorod plays in the second tier and struggles to attract crowds. Next up, we have Rostov Arena. It can hold up to 45,000 people and it took 330 million to build. Sweltering summer temperatures could be a problem for teams coming to the southern Russian steppe to play group or at least 16 games in the city. The stadium sits on the bank of the Don River and is planned to become the center of a vast new housing and leisure development after the World Cup. When the tournament is over, the stadium will be the new home of FC Rostov, which beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League group stage in 2016, but has since slipped back into the middle of the Russian standings. Next up is the Volgograd Arena. It can hold up to about 45,568 people. It took $300 million to build. In a city once known as Stalingrad, every sport has wartime history and the stadium is no different. Workers doing construction has to deal with finding unexploded munitions and soldiers' corpses from the Battle of the Stalingrad. The stadium sits at the foot of Russia's best-known World War II memorial. The location meant the stadium has to be designed with a low roofline so as not to obscure views of the motherland called sculpture. German youth players were invited to a test game at the stadium in a gesture of the international reconciliation. Next, we have Yekaterinburg Arena. It can hold up to almost 36,000 people and it's 220 million for rebuild. Even before it opens, the stadium in the Ural mountain city of Yekaterinburg is famous for its unusual design. In an attempt to keep costs down, the stadium has 12,000 temporary seats so far, so normal for a World Cup. However, those seats are on the west towers of scaffolding stretching over the walls of the main stadium, which could make being a top row a vertigo-inducing experience. Reducing the capacity to 23,000 after the tournament should make life easier to local harp club Ural Yekaterinburg, which averaged crowds of over just 8,000 in the Russian Premier League this season. Human Rights Watch alleged that some workers were required to work in temperatures of minus 25 degrees Celsius and weren't given enough breaks to stay warm. Next up, we have Moldova Arena in the city of Saransk. And it can hold up to about 44,000 people and it took $295 million to build. With a population of just 300,000, the city was a surprise choice as a host city. Located 10 hours by road southeast of Moscow, it's by far the smallest of the 11 cities but hopes to make up for that with a warm welcome for foreigners at the biggest international event in the city's history. Many fans arriving for the World Cup won't be staying in hotels because the city simply just doesn't have enough, but on campsites or in newly finished apartment blocks which will be sold after the tournament. Large parts of the stadium are temporary, meaning it can be reduced to 25,000 capacity avenue after the tournament. And finally, we have the Kaliningrad Stadium in the city of Kaliningrad. It can hold up to 35,000 people. It costs $300 million to build. And this city is the capital of the silver of Russian land cut off from the rest of the country and sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania. Until World War II, the city was part of Germany and called Königsberg. Officials are hoping its location and history will make this city an attractive destination from fans from other European countries. The stadium is a compact, modest design which has been built quickly. There have been repeated allegations of corruption involving the stadium, and that included several arrests. For more news updates and more on this, subscribe to our channel and stay tuned.